It's wrong, but it's the rightest way I can do the wrong thing. Okay, here we go again. So, I got the old broken bolt out. Wasn't as bad as it could have been. This is the old flex plate bolts. If we take a look here, we see how close it gets threaded to the crank. There is barely any distance there. Whip out the old feeler gauge and we can see, I mean, I'm not going to get specific with it because it doesn't really matter, but it's pretty much that. That's what we've got gap wise between the crank and the real bolt that needs to be in there. Well, you're not supposed to reuse these. The reason the last one broke, I'm absolutely certain, is because I was way wrong when I said 11 foot-pounds plus 50 degrees was light. Apparently that's what it's supposed to be. So trying to find these bolts and replace them, this is what they come up with. Everybody does. Not even close. It says flex plate bolts. It says it's, I mean, it references it from the computer to this engine. There's only 6 of them. They've got washers and they're way too big. There's 8 of these, well, 7, because I broke one. These are the same size as the torque converter bolts. These have no washers. These have washers. These are the same size as torque converter bolts. Torque converter bolts, I'm going to reuse them. I'm going to take this back or put it in a box and save it for later. I found these on ZZ Performance. They're pretty much the right ones. I'm almost 90% sure they're the right ones. ZZ Performance has them. ZZ Performance is a website basically for these stupid little cars and this engine. So they're the only place that has where they show these bolts, these dimensions, 8 of them, no washers, and everybody else shows this or something stupid that's not going to work. So ZZ Performance wants $59 for 8 of those bolts, and then another $50 for shipping. Nope. So O'Reilly's, after I went twice and got the wrong ones, has these, and they are the same bolt minus a couple of differences. So it'll thread right in. Oops, we'll use this one. It threads in, it's tight. It's a grade 8 bolt. There's the problem. A little bit bigger gap there. That's bottomed out. So what am I to do? The actual bolt, that's bottomed out. See the difference in the gap there? So I need to take that much off of this bolt to make it work, because I don't want it loose. And I've got 8 of these. And they also oops, tight, are the same, which is pretty important to get, well, not pretty important, extremely important to get this the same. So this has this little lip right here which grabs the plate. So what is this? See that right there? And that's what we need. Here's the problem with this though. See how one of these is not like the other also? This is taller than this. And this is taller than this. Oh, there we go. So I need to cut this because it's bottoming out in the crank. And then I think I'm going to shave a little bit off of the bottom here to get this thickness the same, because I'm afraid that might hit the torque converter when I go to bolt it on. That's why these are so thin. So because there's very little clearance between the torque converter and the crank. So that's where we're at. Also, I mean, it's a different size head by a little bit. The threads are right. The base is right. So then I go, should I reuse these and just modify one of these and make it work? Absolutely not. Should not reuse these bolts. Should not use these bolts. So which is the lesser of the two evils? Reuse these. It's a lot lighter torque than when I broke that last one. This thing is that 11 foot-pounds, 132 inch-pounds plus 50 degrees is nothing on this bolt. Is that going to snug it up tight enough? I don't know. That's what ZZ Performance shows, and they're the only ones that show this actual bolt. All the other people are saying 60 pounds, but they're showing it on these big hogs. Well, yeah, this will handle a 60-pound torque. The smaller one, this is what happens to it when you do 60 pounds on it. So, should I reuse these? No. Should I use this? No. Am I going to reuse these? Yes. Am I going to use this? Yes. I'm going to modify one of these. I'm going to put these back in because I know they're the right size and they're going to do it exactly the way it's supposed to, minus the fact that they've been used once. 11 pounds isn't that much. This, I'm going to cut, I'm going to shave, and I'm going to use it. It's wrong, but it's the rightest way I can do the wrong thing. So I've taken this bolt and this bolt, and I put them together here. And that is where I need to cut. So I've got to take this off of this bolt. I've got them pretty as close as I can get it with the equipment I have. That's where I'm going to go, like that. I took a green marker and marked up here so I know where to cut. Put a nut on it so I can get my threads back after I cut it. I'm going to run this nut down. I'm going to cut that green line, and that should give me the right length bolt. Here we go. Instead of that big old grinder, I'm going to use my Dremel on account of I can get a lot more precise on the cut, and I don't think it'll heat the bolt up as much. If you ever cut a bolt, always put a nut on it first so you can get your threads back in case you jank them all up. Luckily, this one didn't get too bad. If I had cut this with the grinder rather than that Dremel, I'd probably have all kinds of boogered up threads. So that's the way I do it anyhow. Don't listen to me, I'm wrong. So here's original. and here's the cut one. So now let's see. It's not going to bottom out on me anymore. So I'm going to be able to get the right torque on it. But I still got this issue that, I mean, it's just a fuzz thicker. But I think I'm going to grind a little bit of that off just to get it down to that thickness rather than this thickness, so that I don't run into an issue trying to put the bolted torque converter up to it. Now we're a lot closer to the same thickness on these bolts. Alrighty, back to square one again. Got to get it lined up the right way or the holes won't line up. That's the idiot-proof part of it. Remember, I am an idiot, so I can fail on this pretty easily. But they won't line up unless, typically, there it is. Nope. I have every one that I've ever done had a dowel pin or something to line you up with your flex plate. There we go. That's it. This one, if you don't get it right, you just can't put all the bolts in, and then you know you did it wrong. I'm about to do it all wrong again. I can see that I've crushed this a little bit by over-tightening those last ones. That's sad. I feel bad about that, but oh well. So, should I reuse these old bolts? Absolutely not. Do not reuse the old bolts. Should I use a modified bolt that I just bought off the shelf at the store? Absolutely not. Do not reuse the old bolts. Do not use a modified bolt that you just grabbed off the shelf and cut and ground, like this one here. Should I over torque these? No. Learned that the hard way. I did it and it didn't work. Now that I know the torque specs, I'm going to play the game a little differently. Should I use red Loctite or blue Loctite? Use blue Loctite. I'm using red. Why? Because I'm a rebel. It's red thread locker, not red Loctite, because I don't have any sponsors. Should I reuse these bolts? Never reuse the old bolts. Should you use a bolt that you found on the store shelf and modified and cut and ground down to make it the same thickness? Never. Am I going to? Yep. All right. Now I'll go through and make sure they're all torqued down to good 132 inch-pounds in a star pattern. That being done, now I need to go 50 degrees on each one after that, and I'm going to try and keep the same pattern. All right, back to the 50 degrees thing. I've got them all torqued down to the 132 inch-pounds. So if I go straight up and down, can't hardly see it, but there's a mark there. That's noon. If this is 3, so this would be 3. This would be noon, right at the top of this bolt. If I turn this point from here to here, that would be 90 degrees. If I turned it all the way around to here, it'd be 180. If I went all the way around, it would be 360. I want 50, so halfway between here and here, if this is 90, half of 90 is 45, right in there. So I'm gonna go fuzz past it to get to 50. If some's good, more must be better. So that point is gonna go there. That's it. I'm done playing with this. Use the same bolts, use the wrong bolt. All the right bolts were the wrong bolts because you're not supposed to reuse the right bolts. You're supposed to use new right bolts. Good luck finding those bolts. We're good. It ain't loose. Those are tight. Red Loctite in there, keeping them from backing out. And we're going to put this engine back in this car, finally. So one other thing I have to do before I put this engine back down in here is, yeah, that's for the, not that one, these guys here, for the oil level sensor, which is on the side of the block here. Well, I couldn't get that plug to come off of there, and I kind of forgot about it while I was pulling it out, so that happened. So I went on Amazon. That is the part that I got, and it should work fine. Amazon, 13 bucks, sent to the house in 2 days. But I got, it's hard to tell what color's what, especially on the camera, but I'm going to splice these wires to these wires, and then I can just plug it into the side of the engine and be done with it. And also I changed the transmission dipstick tube. That explains the 74 gallons of tranny fluid and old oil down on the ground. The reason I changed that tube was because grinding on this thing, trying to cut these bolts and get that loose so I could get the engine out like a felon, like a criminal. I cut and nicked the old transmission tube. So I bought a new one from Rock Auto for like, I don't know, 12, 11, 8, 17 bucks. It wasn't much. All right, so putting this wire back together, I look down here, and I've got black and yellow and brown. I look at the old connector, and what I've got left on here is black and yellow. This one here was the brown. So using the clip and the slot as a reference, we know that black and yellow was on that side. So I know that black and yellow is supposed to go to red on this one. We're going to get them right. Red goes to black and yellow. Brown goes to black. I've put some heat shrink tube on. I've got flux on the wires. I've got to clean those up a little bit more, flux them. I'm going to get some solder on these guys and then twist them together and throw some solder on it. Slide the tubes down, heat them up, catch the car on fire from all the grease, and then call the fire department in the junkyard. I need a bigger garage. This is a fun game. Getting there. Oh, we're almost there now. Jack stands underneath there. I gotta watch out for it. And the engine's facing the wrong way since I had to lift it up. Hopefully I can turn it that much. Yeah, we'll do something about that. I guess. It's too late now. At least I'm not hitting the ceiling. Where I need to go. So as it comes down, it's going to go that way. Also, too, as well as including. Now I'll go ahead and put that motor mount on. Goes this way. Progress is fun. You get a little bit done here, a little bit done there, you start feeling better about yourself. Start feeling like you're getting the job done little by little. Otherwise, it becomes pretty overwhelming. Trying to just think about the task at hand and doing the whole thing. That gets to be a little bit much. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and put the AC compressor on now. It's pretty easy access. I hope that's not the wrong thing to do. I don't remember if I had to take it off. I don't remember if I had to take it off when I pulled the engine out. I know I took it off to get this off because I had to get this off to clear this. Well, I've got plenty of room now. I probably didn't even need to wait to put that on. At least there's antifreeze left in it. It's almost in there. Might as well just make a bigger mess on the floor. There it is. All right. Where did all that antifreeze come from? It hasn't leaked the whole time it's been out. All of a sudden. So for all intents and purposes, it's in. It takes a long time to get everything lined up just right here on where the bell housing meets the back of the engine. I've got a jack underneath the transmission under a pan with a piece of wood underneath that so I don't cave in the transmission pan. But you have to make sure, don't try and cross thread these bolts in. Once it gets close and the dowels, there's a dowel down there, you probably can't see it, and there's another one down here. And you get those dowels lined up, it slides in, but the transmission, or the transmission could be here and the engine could be here, and it could be, one could be this way and one could be this way, or they can't go this way because the dowels are holding that, or it could be like this, and those threads will not go. You have to just kind of finagle it. Jack up the transmission a little bit, lower the engine, just keep going until you get this gap the same all the way around, preferably tight. But now I can thread the bolts in. You can't, if the bolts won't go, don't try and force them, because then you're going to have a whole different nightmare. But just, let's see if I can get in there and see that one. See, now I can thread them in finger tight, so I know everything's lined up on the money. And I'm just going to snug these a little bit and then get everything buttered up. I hope that one goes there. There's a ground wire that bolts onto that. I took pictures and I got the videos, so in case it doesn't, it might go down there or it might go up here. I know it's right here somewhere. No biggie. But once I get everything else bolted in, then it's going to be a whole lot easier to finish this up. And I've got the motor mount on the front of the engine in place and lined up. See, that one's not going for me. I don't know. Everything else has been in. So that's the only one that I'm having a little bit of an issue with. But I think once I get her all snugged up, everything should be good. But she's in. So it was quite a productive day. Got the flex plate replaced, wrong. Got the engine in, obviously. Transmission bolted to the engine. Don't tighten up the bolts on the bell housing to the engine until you get underneath there and check that the torque converter and flywheel aren't kind of like that when they should be like that. You know what I mean? Like that instead of like that. Because then you can't, if you get this tightened up and something's goofy down there, you can't get that straightened out. So just make sure that you can spin the torque converter so that you can bolt the torque converter bolts through the flywheel flex plate into the torque converter. Then you can tighten this up. I still have the B bolt. The B bolt stands for the bad bolt. It's a pain in the butt. It has to go in over there that way. Motor mount went in pretty easy. Just had to slowly set it down and line it up and then get the bolts to drop in. They're in tight, good, done. So everything's pretty much ready. Next step is to start hooking up wires, hoses, and we should be good, ready to fire this thing up. I did, however, have, it was quite a productive day, but there's a lot of collateral damage. My glasses came apart. They fell off my face and broke. They're cheapos. I'm going to go to Family Dollar and get another 20 pair. Because they're not prescription, I just need them to see. And then also my shirt became a rag because laying underneath there with all that goo, I ended up sucking up most of it on my back. So I took my shirt off and sopped it up. And then my phone fell off of my homemade makeshift tripod and shattered into a billion pieces. It still works, but you know how that goes. Again, Walmart. I might make a trip to Walmart tomorrow and get a case of these, and no, I'm not going to get one of those. This one's good enough. But this phone, $30 or something like that. Samsung something or another, blah, blah, blah. As long as the camera works,